Namaste everyone. Thank you for joining me in this video. So today I'll just take you through the Sankhya philosophy or Samkhya philosophy, as people would call it, and why it is important in the study of Vedic astrology. Okay. So no system of education or no vidya that originates from India is a standalone subject. Okay. And it must all be comprehended together in order to create a well-rounded and holistic knowledge that is closely connected to its root. Okay. And such knowledge is also always known as Sanskritic Vidya. Okay. And since knowledge of one model of reality enhances the understanding of other models, so what Jyotish does is that it has adopted Ayurvedic principles to enrich its medical knowledge. Okay. And it has also embraced the philosophies of Samkhya, Yoga, and Vedanta to enhance its psychodynamics. Okay, it has also enlisted Niti Shastra, which is political science, to teach Jyotishis about secular dynamics. Okay, and Sanskrit is very crucial to a thorough knowledge of all these, of all these ancillaries, because because specific word references within a work on Jyotish, right? There are words like Pitta, Karma, then Buddhi, Sattva. So these are meant to trigger memories of the full implications of these terms in their original contexts. Okay, and I always tell my students of of astrology that always use the Sanskrit terms to refer to whenever you refer to any word. For example, you should always use the word Mangala instead of Mars, or you must use the word Kark instead of Cancer. Okay. So these words, they are meant to trigger memories, as I said, of their of their original contexts. And any astrologer who is well versed with these principles, who reads that Manas is ruled by the moon, he or she knows which part of the mind Manas represents, and knows that it is something other than what we commonly express in English by the word mind. Okay, so such words, as they cannot be understood outside the construct of the of the Sanskritic Vidya. Okay, so any modern similar model technical terms can be used outside the context of the psychology to which they belong. Okay, and there are some people who pursue the ancient texts of astrology without first studying their context, and these people are the ones who will conclude that Indian astrology is all prediction and no psychology. Okay, this is something that most students of Western astrology do, right? They think that Indian astrology is more about prediction and Western astrology is more about psychology, but it is not the case. Okay, because Jyotish, it did not present any psychologically, it did not present any psychology explicitly in its texts. Why? Because because psychology is already presented very explicitly in texts like Ayurveda and Yoga. Okay, and these are texts which every Jyotishi is expected to study. Okay, for example, nowadays medical astrology has become very, very popular, but if you look at the the Jyotishis of the earlier times, they were anyways well versed with medical astrology, knowing very well that that medical astrology is it's a very strong, or it's a very integral part of Vedic astrology. Okay, and what happens is that it would violate the well respected principles of verbal frugality to repeat such information in a work on Jyotish. Okay, if suppose if Parashara is speaking about about how the moon represents the bloodstream. Okay, so if you would say, for example, if he says something about the blood, then he already expects the reader to know that the blood is related by the moon. Okay, so astrology and Vedic astrology and medical astrology, they are they are very much correlated. In fact, they are both incomplete without each other. Okay, and psychology is in fact central to to each reading that a Jyotishi performs, right? So all astrologers will use horoscopic insights to anticipate likely developments on the concrete level of reality, and they would also use their psychological skills to teach their clients how to cope with those potential results. Okay, for example, when we speak about karma, right? When we speak about karma, the fixed signs, they represent the karmas that are fixed, that cannot be changed. So if if someone's marriage Okay, if someone's seventh house is afflicted and that seventh house is falling in a fixed sign, then the astrologer will actually tell their clients that doing remedies will not suffice. It will not improve the situation. So it's better that you are prepared to deal with the circumstances of this, that are supposed to unfold in this birth. Okay. So anyone, who hopes to learn Jyotish, who hopes to learn Ayurveda, then Ashtanga Yoga or Tantra, they must learn something of the Samkhya philosophy, which is the structural basis. Okay. So Samkhya, it means number, and it indicates that the philosophy is comprised of a number of tattvas. Okay. Tattvas are things which evolve out of one another and which possess both, both literal and numerological significance. And only one of the tattvas of Sankhya, which is known as the Purush tattva, it is really real and forever. It is changelessly true. Okay, it is the supreme singularity, which the West calls as God. Okay, it is the transcendent consciousness which is beyond time, which is beyond space and causation. Okay, it is the reality which remains whenever the universe ceases to exist. Okay, it represents Shiva when he had not embraced Shakti. Okay, and creation begins when the Purusha desires to experience itself. That is when it embraces Shakti. Okay, because the desire to experience itself causes a sense of separateness to arise, which is known as Prakriti or nature or Parvati, however you like to call it. Okay, but for our convenience, we call it as Prakriti. So this desire to experience itself, it causes a sense of separateness to arise, and it is known as Prakriti or nature. And it is the womb of the manifested universe, which is the macrocosm. Okay, and desire is the foundation of the manifested universe. Okay, now most people don't know what desire actually is, right? They think that wanting to have a cup of coffee is desire, maybe wanting to have sex with your partner is desire, maybe wanting to have children is desire, but desire is much more than that. Okay, maybe one day we can have a webinar on desire, but that is for another time, right? So awareness of this separateness, it produces mahat. Okay, it produces buddhi, which is transcendent, which is limitless awareness, and the individuation of this awareness, it produces the ahamkara. Okay, now what is ahamkara? Ahamkara is it is the I. It is the I creator. It is the force which provides beings with their individuality. Okay, it is the power of self-identification. It is the power to discriminate. Okay, it is the power or the force that tells an individual, I am performing this action. It is me. Okay. But what the problem with ahamkara is that it gives us a sense of discernment, that is good, but it also causes a sense of separation. Okay, it causes a sense of separation, and this power to self-identify with one's actions is the basis of the law of karma. Okay, and I have done a webinar on the law of karma. If anyone who wants to access the recordings, they can always ping me personally, right? And I've detailed how this law of karma works. Okay, and ahamkara has three gunas. Gunas are, of course, qualities or attributes, and they are sattva, rajas, and tamas. Okay, and in the context of the evolution of consciousness, sattva represents the individuality that is relatively self-aware. Okay, sattva represents purpose. Okay, it represents purpose, that that I am not separate from the from the universe. I'm not separate from the bird. I'm not separate from the tree. I'm not separate from my partner. Okay, tamas is that individually which is relatively unaware of itself, and rajas is the ability to become relatively more or less self-aware. So rajas is the place between sattva and tamas. Okay, and from sattva the mind arises, which is the manas, and the 10 senses. Okay, so what are the 10 senses? There are the 5 senses of perception. Okay, hearing, touch, sight, taste, and smell. And with these senses we import into ourselves things from the external environment. Okay, and then there are the 5 senses of action with which we export things into the external environment. Okay, so the 5 senses of action, which are they are speech, right? Speech, of course, represents all forms of communication. Okay, then hands, which symbolize creative action. Then we have our feet, which represents locomotion. That means the ability to move from one place to the other, primarily in search of food, primarily in search of a partner. Then we have genitals, which of course govern reproduction, and then we have anus, which represents the elimination of toxic wastes from our body. And then from tamas, the 5 objects of the senses arise. Okay, what are the 5 objects? They are sound, texture, form, flavor, and odor. And from these objects arise the 5 great elements, which are the mahabhutas. Okay, the building blocks of the physical universe. Okay, what are the pancha mahabhutas? They are either, which is the which is akash tattva, air, which is vayu tattva, fire, which is agni tattva, water, which is jala tattva, and earth, which is prithvi tattva. And Rajas does not produce any evil use. Okay. And one of India's greatest spiritual texts, the Srimad Bhagavatam, it compares buddhi to a charioteer. Okay, the manas to the reins of the charioteer, and the senses to the horses. Okay, and the individual soul to the experiencer, who sits or stands behind the charioteer directing his actions. Okay, so the body, this human body which we have, they are more tamasic than the senses, which are in turn comparatively more tamasic than the manas. Okay, and the ahamkara, it is not, it is not completely tamasic, it is fundamentally rajasic. Okay, and buddhi, which is the faculty of discrimination, it is predominantly, it is buddhi is the conscious mind that we have. Okay, it is the faculty of discrimination, and it is predominantly sattvic, and the soul, it goes beyond the, beyond the three gunas. Okay, and what Jyotish does is that, for the sake of simplicity, for the sake of understanding its principles, it assigns these various functions to the various planets. Okay, for example, the moon represents manas, Mercury represents buddhi. Okay, the ascendant, or the rising sign, it represents the ahamkara, and the sun stands for the atma or jiva, which is the individual soul. And this whole horoscope is the field of prakriti. Okay, prakriti is the individual's microcosmic expression of his or her personal reality as part of the macrocosm, which is the, which is the cosmic prakriti. Okay, and all these factors in an individual's horoscope must be well analyzed, right, if we want to analyze the individual's mind truly. So as you have seen, Vedic astrology is very much psychological, which again goes, the traditional belief that Western astrology is more psychological in nature. Okay, and in the context of Jyotish, we cannot speak about the quality of mind unless we know which qualities of mind are activated within the organism at any one time. Okay, we do not know which samskara is activated at which time, right? And if we don't know which samskaras are activated, then we cannot actually speak about the quality of the mind. Okay, so manas, which is the most important of the various factors used to evaluate the the mind of the average person, it measures your likeness and dislikes. Okay, it measures your likes and dislikes, the tastes and distastes, the life experiences to which you are attracted, and the ones which you want to avoid. Okay, and because people become emotional over their over their likes and dislikes, the moon's condition in the horoscope usually indicates the overall emotional state. Okay, and that is the reason why the moon is regarded as the most important planet in Vedic astrology, because a strong and well placed moon, it tends to produce a stable, enjoyable life, while the disturbed moons will cause imbalances. Okay, it will cause those imbalances will again lead to addictions or obsessions. Okay, so that is the reason the moon is also known as the queen of the planets, right? And those beings who act from the soul at all times will of course not be affected by the lower manas. Okay, there are people, who are acting all the time, acting from the level of the sun, because the sun cannot be, the soul cannot be, there are no impressions on the soul. The soul is free from all impressions. Whatever impressions happen, they will happen at the mental level. Okay, but then it is very much, it is very much well known that the people who are self-realized, who are operating from the soul at all times, they are not impacted by the planets. That means the planets will stop impacting these people. Okay, so anyways, that's it from me in this video. Thank you for watching. Kindly like the video, subscribe to the channel, and kindly join my free Jyotish class, the Vedic Astrology Foundations basic course, which we do every Sunday from 8 o'clock in the evening. Okay, so if you want a reading regarding your chart, if you want a consultation, you're most welcome to reach me out at the number which is provided in the description box. And thank you for watching this video. I'll see you in another video very soon. Namaste. Om Gurave Namaha.